Before we get into today's episode, don't forget to sign up to the book and the VIP newsletter at thehighestandbestuse.com. For the book, you can get that at Amazon, Chapters, Barnes & Noble, all of these places in paperback, ebook, hardcover, and of course now the Audible version as well. So grab the book, sign up to the VIP newsletter, thehighestandbestuse.com, and now to today's episode.
I'm Jeremy McCulloch, and the highest and best use for my business is recycling used buildings.
Thanks for tuning into the Highest and Best Use Real Estate Podcast, where we talk techniques to optimize your land, structure, skill sets, and time, as well as other highest and best use principles to make your business more profitable, productive, and efficient. I'm your host, Ryan Carr, reminding you that good deals are found, great deals are created, and I'm so excited for this. Today we have Jeremy McCulloch on the show. Jeremy is second generation house mover, right? He has, and I got to read this, he's the owner of Sampson Contracting. He's successfully moved and jacked over 500 buildings, and all of these have been in the residential, historical, and commercial spaces. So, my man, thanks for being here today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
This is exciting. I was telling you before the show, I've always wanted to have somebody on the show that has done exactly what you do. It's been like I've been thinking about it for years, and I'm so excited to actually have you here because you're the guy. You're
Perfect.
doing the doing.
Yeah.
So, for the episode today, we're going to be talking about jacking and moving houses and structures, right? What does it cost? How long does it take, right? And what is it? Like, why would people do that? So that's where we're going to go for the show. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Like you said, Jeremy McCulloch, owner of Sampson Contracting. Grew up in this industry. Our specialty is moving, jacking buildings.
Awesome. And second gen?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Really? Elaborate on that.
Yeah. I grew up in my father's business. He started his own business in the 70s and started running crews for him. I worked part-time as a kid, summers, and started running crews for him at 18.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
18. And how old are you now?
44.
44. So you've moved a ton of properties.
Quite a
ton
few.
of buildings.
Quite a few, yeah.
What was the interest? Like back in the day when he got started, when you got started, like how did this all come to be?
Like if houses are up for demolition and you can get rid of them, you don't have to demo them. He started in the Pickering Airport site.
Really?
Yes, which is still a hot topic. Yeah.
How many houses do you think came out of that over time?
Not very many. There was a lot of protests from people, and we were even in there 20 years ago, and they were still protesting.
Really?
Pulling houses out, yeah.
And still today?
Today as well, yeah.
Just no shovels in the ground, no dirt, no nothing.
No, it's crazy.
Wow. What do you like the best? Do you like historical homes?
Historics, yeah.
Really? Why is that?
I think just because they're more interesting, the big old buildings. I love old stone houses, especially when you get up 30 feet up and you find a 600-800 pound stone that they put up there with no machinery, nothing. And they're all different. Every one of them's different, but along similar guidelines.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You ever had one fall down?
No.
No?
No.
That's a good track record.
Yeah. My father always said, if you lose one house, you're done.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like why?
I think it was just more of a pride thing than anything kind of thing, right? But
Sure.
And you need confidence when you're jacking them up. You need to know there's no real playbook, and every job's different. So
that's what keeps it
you
fresh.
need to
and
be
fun,
sure
right?
of yourself, right? So
Yeah.
and the other thing is well, sorry to cut you off, but you work underneath them. That's what I tell people all the time.
Yeah.
So if you lose one, there's a good chance you're not going home, or somebody's not going home.
And that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Not a good thing. So let's talk about like what is jacking up and what is moving a house. Like what are the differences between the two?
Generally, jacking up is just for foundation repairs or replacement, and then moving is sometimes if you split a lot, move them on site, sometimes to get them off a lot to a different lot.
Okay. And you guys can take these up the street too?
Yep.
Really? What does that look like?
Police escorts, permits, utilities, depends on the size of the house,
Yeah.
Some building, portable schools, you can split them into 12-foot sections. There's no escorts, no nothing. They're pretty simple. But wider buildings, bigger buildings are
Really?
a bigger deal.
Yeah. You ever had one where you're like, oh, geez, we're going to have to cut this house up into multiple pieces because it's too wide for the road?
We used to do that all the time.
Really?
Or cut the roofs to get them under the wires. Take a section out.
So when you're doing something like this, right, you're moving a house. Like when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this historic home, I'm thinking about moving it, I want to change lots, I want to shift it around. Like what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What do you think about?
These days it's permits. Because some jobs can take a year and a half to just get through the permit process.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I have no idea.
What is it going on behind the scenes?
Permissions, or if they're splitting the lot, and conservation, that kind of stuff, and if they need a variance, just the whole process, right?
So would the house literally just sit there until you guys are ready to go, or like what is some of the prep work that goes on to get these things ready, so when the permits do come through, you're like, yeah, we're good?
We don't use, it's not a long process, so it'll just sit until everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else do you think about when you go into a project like this? You're like, okay, somebody calls, the phone rings, then what?
More or less is when are you going to be ready, and how far along are you? Because everybody thinks they're ready for next week, but
Sure.
It's not always the case, right? So
What's some of the shortest and some of the longest timelines you've ever bumped into? In terms of a
some
situation
stuff,
like this?
some stuff people call when they're ready to go and they have their permits, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you know what, we got an opening this weekend, we'll come down and we'll do it.
Yeah.
It can happen that fast. Our fastest house is a 20 by 30 bungalow.
Yeah.
From the time we showed up on site, we had it jacked up 3 feet in 3 hours.
So okay, what 3 hours?
Yeah.
A whole house up in the sky.
Up in the sky, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow. What does the process look like?
For that one, it's, if they're straightforward bungalows with center beam construction, it's 2 beams. You work on cantilevers from the outside wall holding the center up.
Yep.
You roll the beams in, build the cribs, and start jacking.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? And the machinery and equipment involved. I mean, you're not hand bombing beams into a house, right?
Yeah. It's more or less, we use a skid steer and move them around.
Okay, yeah.
When I started with my father, they used to back the trailer in and flip the beams off with a bar and roll them in with railroad jacks and rollers.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I've seen some of these TV shows on Discovery, like years ago. And I think it was called, what was the name of it?
Monster moves and...
Yeah, something like that. And they were down in like the bayou down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
They were jacking up houses for all the flooding.
Yeah.
Right? They were picking the houses up, flooding, and then the flood could happen underneath, and the house would be fine.
And they did a lot in New Jersey as well.
Same
After
idea.
Sandy. Yeah,
Okay.
they were basically doing everything on the coast.
Less common in the GTA, something like that, for floodplain issues, maybe as opposed to down south, or no?
Yeah, I don't know of anywhere around here that's had those type of issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the conservation area get all buck nutty about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a
they're
permit
trying to
issue,
keep
right?
us out of the water, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So why would somebody want to be, we'll talk about jacking and moving as two separate things, right? Because they're kind of like, they're the same, but they're different, right?
Totally different, yeah.
So why would somebody want to jack up a house, first of all?
If the basement, like some houses are built with low basements, low headroom, to increase headroom, sometimes to repair foundations that are no good anymore.
Really?
Put in new foundations, or houses that were built without a foundation, blocks and pads, that kind of stuff, cottages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this applies to rural, residential, cottage properties, in town, all over.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
What do you see most common?
Now we're running into a lot of people repairing, older foundations, that kind of stuff, that are leaking or, just too far gone. We do get into stuff where, from the 50s, 60s, where they were pouring a lot of on-site concrete, where the concrete's failing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Just poor mix.
Poor mix. Yeah.
Do you really get that today? Poor mix.
You hear people complain about sometimes it acts different, when you're working with it, but I don't. I've never had callbacks for flaking or shaling or coming apart, right? So, yeah.
So back in the day, if they were mixing it on site, like it'd be a person with bags. Is that the idea?
Yeah, or piles of gravel and Portland, right? So,
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and if
So
you get the ratio wrong,
if they weren't counting their shovels properly. Yeah. So.
Okay, so you're jacking up the house. People are doing foundation repair or replacement. I would expect like a repair might be a wall or two, whereas a replacement would be full excavation.
Yeah, usually if there's a failing wall, it's tough to replace one wall. So you're doing the whole foundation, right? But we extend on top of basements is more common for repairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Nowadays, there's filling and stuff involved, or everything now with the permit process. They want an engineer, so two jobs don't necessarily come in the exact same. But we did one a couple of years ago, just about 4 years ago, and we just went in, jacked it up. It was a bungalow, and they took the old blocks, put rebar down in them, filled them with concrete, and then they put 3 more courses on it, and we set it back down.
Really?
Yeah.
Total timeline involved there? Like, what are we talking?
I think that one was a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Really?
For us, we were there for 2 days, setting it up and jacking it, I think. And then the block layer comes and does their work, and then we're back for a day cleaning up.
And do you set it back down on cribs? Or do you just leave it in the sky on jacks? Like, how does that look?
No, it sits on cribs. Well, it sits there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can't rely on hydraulics or...
Well, you don't want to leave your gear out for when we bring the jacks home and put them away. They're very expensive too. So
yeah, is it different than a car jack? Like, how does this?
Oh yeah.
Like, what is the difference?
One of the main difference for this in the stuff that we use that I've found over the years is it's built to handle dirt. It's nothing to take these jacks apart and find a couple tablespoons of sand and dirt inside them. Yeah, and the screens in the machine are reusable, like the pre-filters and that.
Yeah.
Whereas some of our skid steers and that kind of stuff, if they had that in them, it'd be catastrophic.
They'd lock up,
so,
yeah. So when you put the jacks underneath the building,
mm-hmm.
do you run hoses out to a central unit and then that
yes.
pumps?
Yeah.
And does it work on, this is more of a technical question, but does it work on pressure or does it work on distance? Because you could have like more pressure in one jack than the other and it lifts higher on one side than the other, no? Like,
only with a certain type of machine. That's what we call a unified jacking machine.
Okay.
So a standard power pack is just pressure, and a unified will run on volume, like you say.
Yeah. And volume equates to distance.
Volume equates to distance, yeah.
So everything lifts together.
Yep. Yeah, and then they're pretty cool. A unified machine is something to see. Yeah.
Interesting. So you'd have to take all of the play out of the jacks, like get them all set, like level, preloaded, and then you say, okay, this is our baseline. Now we'll lift.
With a unified, yeah. But I mean, we did years ago when I started. We used to run on power packs. We used to run 8 jack power packs.
Yeah.
And then we'd plumb them together and put 40 jacks on them, and we'd run them around the building, and we would do some preloading and testing and try and find, because you're teeing jacks together.
Sure.
So try and find similar loads on the building and jack them up that way. And
really?
Yeah, it was a lot of learning.
40
curve.
jacks, man. Holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to make sure everything's pretty tuned up and dialed. And just so.
Yeah, that job's on YouTube. It was the Four Seasons condo towers downtown Toronto.
Yep.
Like Bay in Yorkville.
Really?
It was their sales office. It was 590 tons, 75 by 75.
How many stories?
Just a single story sales office, but it had a 5-inch thick concrete slab. It was like poured on Q deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a cool job.
You guys did a job in Toronto. We'll go back to moving houses in a sec. Mm-hmm. You guys had a job in Toronto where you moved. I think this was with your dad, and you guys moved this monster historical home. I think it was in Toronto, and you took it from, I'm going to say like one intersection, a couple intersections up, and you rotated it or moved it. Do you recall this one?
Not specifically, but we did quite a few down there. But
okay,
we did James Cooper Mansion. That was on site for Tridel. That was a big one.
That could have been the one. Was it a big?
It didn't leave
looking?
the site though. It was Knights of Columbus Hall, I think, when they bought it.
Yep.
But it's an old historic mansion. It's a beautiful building.
Very cool.
Yeah. It was 950 tons.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they actually
double brick or?
Oh, and triple brick. Yeah. But they actually built a transfer slab for that one, 2 foot thick, and when we put it on, they excavated underneath it 60 feet while we were working on it.
Holy.
Yeah.
60 feet.
Yeah, it was wild.
Was that for the parking garage for a tower?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I want to come back to historic stuff in a sec.
Sure.
Let's go back to moving houses. So, why would somebody want to move a house? We talked about jacking it up for foundation repair, maybe basement apartment height or something, right?
Yeah. So generally, the rule of thumb has always been for moving a building is just half the cost of building new. Nowadays, the cost of building new is all over the place. So is that ratio, but it does come in quite a bit cheaper. And if you can get your hands on one and you got close proximity with a lot and it all works out, then it always works out.
Interesting.
Put it that way, yeah.
Interesting. What kind of shape does the house have to be in to say, yeah, we're going to move this thing because it makes sense?
That's, to be honest with you, that's totally up to the person that's moving it. Because some of the historic stuff that we move is not in good shape and at all. So,
really?
No.
Really? Because you would think if you're going to go and spend the money to pick a house up, move it, take down all the traffic lights and all the hoopla, like it's got to be half decent, but no.
Well, on those ones, it's more that they have to. So, it's it doesn't matter what shape the house is in. If it's historic, it can be saved, right? So,
sure.
But yeah, for residential, if you're doing it, you would want something pretty decent. But.
Yeah, half the cost of new. That's an interesting rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's That was always the general rule of thumb, but now it's all over. It depends on what you want to spend on it, fit and finish, that kind of stuff, right? But we have a 600 square foot bungalow for sale right now. It's a little 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, living room, nice finishes in it, nothing crazy, but 55,000 delivered. For 600
Delivered.
square feet.
Delivered. Amazon Prime. We can have it tomorrow.
Yeah. And you put your foundation in and that, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
It's more or less hook it up and.
That's hilarious. 55,000 delivered. So you go and buy houses for $1 and then just
Not anymore. Yeah. So everybody wants something out of them, but
sure.
yeah.
Which is funny because the developer, like if I'm building a house, you got to go in there, you got to claw the thing down, you got to haul the garbage away and whatever. There's a cost attributed to that.
Yeah. Developers usually are happy to give them away, but if it's somebody that's you can look online. There's people trying to tear one down and rebuild, and they got it up for sale. 60 grand, you find a mover, and then it goes backwards that way, right?
Sure.
The money's in the moving it, not the.
Yeah.
And then it's the amount that you save, right? So.
What other reasons would somebody want to move a house?
More or less historic, and if you can find a house and you got a lot, like I say, we get into them where they're moving them on site to develop the land. We moved one in Port Perry a couple of years ago, and put it out to the corner of the lot, and they got 3 more houses on the lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Pick it up, slide it over, drop it back down.
And they put that one on a foundation, fixed up, sold it, and then they built another one.
Yeah. It makes sense. I've been in those situations where I'm looking at a lot and I'm like, what can I do with this? Right? And the house has intrinsic value. So if you claw the thing down and take it away, you're detracting value from the dirt. But that house might still be livable, renovatable, the DIY or handyman special, whatever. Like somebody could still make use of that structure.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
and you save, substantial. Like demolition is not cheap. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you move a house, actually, this is a question about building code. So if you move a house and put it on another lot, are you subject to the building code of when the house was built or when the foundation was poured?
Section 11, it's grandfathered, it's existing.
Interesting.
Yeah. The only one that we do run into is with some of these buildings now, because portables, we're splitting and going all over with them. Everybody wants them. They're in demand. Snow load's different in Northern Ontario.
True.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you do have to meet.
beef
But
up
most
the roof
buildings
or-
down here do meet it. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because snow load, like you'd have to beef up the roof.
yeah, we've never run into one that needed it, but it is a higher snow load up there for sure.
So they'll look at that and they'll say, okay, based on the engineering, based on whatever, they'll say, snow load, not quite there. Either adjust it or don't bring it. Is that
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're bringing it, it's going to have to meet that snow load. So
okay? So let's go commercial, residential. So now we've understood why we're going to jack up a house, why we're going to move a house, right? Typically half the cost, this kind of thing. Commercial versus residential. What are the differences there?
there's not a lot of use for us in the commercial world. Sometimes we've done jobs where there's been a mistake on a job, and there was one we did, like a Q-deck floor was built at the wrong height.
Oh.
So we had to go in and jack it up.
Q-deck means?
Like the steel pan with concrete on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than tearing it all out, they need a cheaper solution to get it into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that because of sagging, or that's just like what happened?
It was built at the wrong height. It was it was all installed before somebody noticed. Sometimes it's a coat. Like we had to do one on Bayview Avenue. They built a great big mansion down there, and they were only allowed I think it was a 9-foot second floor.
Yep.
But they wanted a 10, so they put in a 10 and thought nobody would notice. And Toronto said, nope, it's coming down to 9. So we had to go in and jack the second floor free of the first floor.
Yeah.
Cut 12 inches off of it and then lower it down.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because the roof was already installed and it was like a copper tile roof.
Oh man.
So there was money to be saved.
That must have been a beautiful roof.
Yeah.
Copper tile. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then as it goes green, it starts to look like all those old hotels. Whoa. Before we get back to the episode, don't forget to sign up to the VIP newsletter at thehighestandbestuse.com. You get great tips and tricks there, completely free. Also, don't forget to grab a copy of the book at thehighestandbestuse.com, Amazon Chapters, Barnes & Noble, all of these places. That's where you can get it. You can get it in paperback, ebook, hardcover edition, as well as the Audible version too. So if you like to consume content by audio version, grab that. If you like paper, grab it there too. And now back to the episode. Okay, and then on the historic side.
Yeah.
Let's talk about historic. What is the value of moving or jacking up a property that's historic, and why do people do it?
So a lot of the times it's developers that do it because they have to, because it can't be torn down. There is a niche market for people that want historic buildings, but it's very expensive to move them, and it's you really got to want it. But there's people out there that do, like Markham Heritage Estates.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So we got 2 jobs we're looking at in there. This year, if they can if they can sort it all out. But
It's a really cool community.
it is. They need to allow people to build them a little more into homes. When we first started in there, we were still having to put the old windows in the basement and that. It just doesn't make sense. Right?
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
I always love, like, you get an old home or an old car or something that's got the facade of what once was, but it's got modern mechanisms, modern electronics, modern everything, modern wiring, right? Like if you look at a home that's got those old leaded windows, they've got the ripple in them. They're really cool, but they're drafty as hell and they're cold.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If you could somehow blend the two, like get the old glass into a vinyl frame, something that's a little bit more energy efficient, like I could totally see that because it's the best of both worlds, right?
For sure.
Same thing, we were talking about old cars before we got on the show today. And like, old cars are cool, but if they don't start, like what good is it?
It's no good.
You can't go anywhere.
Yeah. No, it's 100%.
So for this place in Markham, how many houses are in that community for somebody who doesn't know?
Geez, I don't know. There's got to be 20 or 30 in there.
Really?
Yeah.
And they came from?
All around Markham. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other places? Durham or?
There's, there's Pickering Museum. Has some old buildings and that in there. They got the oldest barn. I believe it's the oldest barn left standing in Ontario at the Pickering Museum.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? How does moving a heritage home differ from typical stick frame construction?
It's all relatively the same.
You're like, pick it up.
Yeah, more or less. It's same principles. They are tough. Bloom frame houses are tough. And it's crazy what they can lose from that structure and still be
really
solid and safe. Yeah.
Really? Define balloon frame.
When it's the old 1800s way of framing. They frame the outside of the house is separate from the floors and the interior.
Compared to today?
Yeah, no center beam, no loads down through the house. The roof load, everything is all on the outside walls.
What about cracking?
It's something that's tough to avoid, but it's impossible to guarantee no cracking.
Yeah.
Some houses crack in the winter.
Yeah.
Crack
on their own. You haven't even moved it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. We do our best.
Yeah. Any preference, like summer or winter, spring? When's the best time to actually do this?
Unfortunately, sometimes it's easier in the winter because we don't get stuck as much. You're carrying a lot of weight, and when you get stuck with the house, you're stuck.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Just
excavator,
tug
it,
tow trucks, winches and jacks. And
you ever get that where the house is like you're sinking on one corner, you're like, oh my god, we can't tow this thing out.
We never had one we couldn't tow out, but you're sure wishing it wasn't sinking.
Your head scratching. Oh, geez, what are you gonna do with this thing?
Yeah, we had one for my old man years ago up in Milton, and when it sat through the winter, and when the spring came, it was on fill, and it started sinking, and we just kept going back every day and jacking more and more and more, and we were just pushing the cribs into the ground.
Really?
And it was like, when is this ever going to stop? But it did. But
like, or are we talking like when you hit bedrock, when you hit hard clay, like what happens?
More or less, it goes down till it hits something that's strong enough to push back. But
how many of these do you do a year?
15 to 20.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one every 2 weeks, man.
Yeah.
And these were all heritage residential.
No, we don't do we haven't done a lot of heritage in a while, but there's just projects in general. Not everything's like they say, the one we're doing now is just it's a historic home, but there's a porch that's been closed in. They want a foundation under it, so we got to support it.
Gotcha.
Finish the foundation. It's a beautiful old house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these places have so much character.
Yeah, this one does. Yeah.
Do you find that with the heritage societies of Ontario or wherever you're doing this, like, do you find that they really get in the way by saying, hey, it's got to be done a certain way, or is that more so on the building side?
Every area is a little bit different, and I mean, I think they're all doing their best. I know that some of the stuff when they spec certain types we've had jobs where we had one, it was in Markham as well, and the windows cost alone, because they had to buy a specific window, was like $60,000 just for the windows, not even installed.
Oh my God.
And it's because it had to be that window, so it's a tough pill to swallow for homeowners, right?
Yeah.
But, in the end, when it's done, it's a beautiful home, and it's one of a kind, and you gotta want to have them. That's you gotta want them, but people do.
Yeah. Are these more of an emotional play, or is this an investment?
I think I'd have to say historic for residential, for people doing it is 100% emotional.
Interesting.
For personal.
Yeah.
Developers, if they can get past the fact that they have to do it, which most of them have a hard time doing, it's an investment. A lot of times they're allowing you to create a lot or something that you might not even have got in there in the first place because it's something that's there. So the ones that take it and turn it into something are the ones that make out.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Make it work for you. You have to do it.
You do.
But the ones that fight it tooth and nail and stick it in the corner and let it fall down and it sits there forever and it's just an eyesore.
Yeah.
That's stuff I don't like to see.
Does that happen? People are like, oh yeah, we'll get to that. And then eventually it just kind of rots away. The roof falls off.
Demolition by neglect.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain.
Let it sit till it falls down, or run into it with a dump truck. It's
Whoops.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Yep. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are people on the hook for rebuilding? Are they?
It depends on the situation. I don't know. I've never been involved in that. I know we've moved buildings that were partially tore down because they got run into by a dump truck.
Yeah.
And they got caught and they still had to do it.
Really?
And then they had to fix the damage that was done as well. So
And I'm sure the rebuild was worse than the.
All right.
What they
especially with historic, and if you're doing it properly, there's not a lot of guys that do it, and it's not cheap. So, and it's time consuming. So,
and all these properties with the gold medallion on the front door that say, this is historic. This was built in the 1880s or whatever. Like, there's a significant heritage factor to that.
100%. Yeah.
like,
And the people that put their heart and soul into it, you can tell, and it pays off, and then it's there for the future, right?
Okay, so let's talk money. So if we're going like we were talking about a $60,000 set of windows, right? If you're going to move a house, you're 600 square foot, one bed, one bath, like super simple. Basically, I'm guessing it's just a utility box. Simple, right?
Yeah. We got two of them actually right now. One's an L shape, one's a rectangle, but yeah, they're like in-law suite type things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for somebody that would be looking to buy something like that, who would your prospective buyer be and why?
So people that are sitting on land, it's generally the same kind of market as modulars and that kind of stuff. It's looking for a more cost-effective way than just building a custom home, right?
Okay. And would they have to renovate when they get that, or it comes pretty reasonably done?
So if 600 square feet is enough, but a lot of places doesn't meet the minimum standard. You need a minimum size. So on that one, what we have proposed to a customer right now is buying the two buildings, setting them up, and then putting a breezeway in between them, and then tying them together that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you still get your footage, but you get to use now for HST. This is an interesting thing because when you do an addition, you're adding square footage, but you already have the existing house. There's no HST component to that, right? But when you drop an existing house on a parcel, I mean, you're back in the same situation. New foundation, old house. Does somebody have to pay HST on that building?
Yeah, we charge it. I don't know if we should be or shouldn't be, but
interesting.
We do.
Yeah. Do you have to pay HST to the government as a new build?
No, we don't. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I should look into that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you guys as a service provider because you would have to charge HST.
Yeah.
It's just you're selling a service, right?
Yeah, but we don't register them like Terrion or anything like that. Right? No.
Because it's an existing house.
Existing house, yeah.
Wow. That's quite the loophole, man.
Yeah. I never really thought about it that way
really
until you say that, yeah.
It's kind of cool because some people bump into a circumstance where you've got a set of stairs that's narrower.
We get into that, and
building code
that's and that's one of the ones that depends on kind of where you are too. That's a tough one to get through because the stairs stay. Technically, we can't drag them down the road. Right. So when you get there, you're building new stairs, and sometimes a lot of times on the historic houses, there's nowhere to put them.
Right,
and you can't cut it up. So
because hallways are narrow, heritage, building code
a lot of times they just let it slide heritage wise, right? Because it's just different. It's just not possible to keep them all up to code, right? But,
wow. So what does it cost to move a house? Let's break this down. So somebody has maybe not a 600 square foot house, but let's just say you're a cookie cutter, 3 bed, 1 bath, 1,000 square foot brick bungalow. Right? You find them all over Ontario.
Yeah.
Excluding the garage, or maybe including the garage, you tell me. What would it cost to move that?
Yeah. So every one is a little different. We price everything by the job. We always go check a job to look at it, where it is, how much stuff we need to get it where it's got to go. But you're $20 to $30 a square foot kind of thing. These
for
days.
The house.
Yeah.
To move it.
And substantially more for masonry homes. They're a lot
Really?
more work. Yeah.
Because?
More steel, more weight, just more to deal with.
Because you have to pick up the brick with the house.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, interesting. So do you have to core holes in the side with, how does that work?
Yeah, we use just rotary hammers, and but you got to put holes all the way around it. And just all the steel framework, and then jacket free.
Huh.
Yeah.
Where do you put the beams?
Wherever they need to go.
Right. But generally, because brick is going to sit on either the sill of the foundation or a lintel of some sort.
Yeah.
Right? And if you pick the house up, the brick would be heavy and it would stay. So how do you get that to come with it?
A lot of the times that mortar joint will separate on its own, depending on the building and what we see when we're looking at it. Sometimes we will slightly pressurize and then knock the top row out of block or whatever. It's, depends on the building and that kind of stuff. But generally they separate right on the joint.
So $20 to $30 a foot. So if you're 1,000 square foot house, you'd be 20 to 30 grand to move that, assuming obviously by the job, but assuming it's within a certain geographic area.
And that's
you couldn't haul that to Michigan.
No, and sometimes moves just don't make sense. It's too far, or
right.
Those smaller buildings that we have, we're able to get them more distance. At 20 feet wide, it's like school portables. Once you get into 30 feet wide, you're not going far, and it's getting tougher and tougher. Roundabouts aren't building friendly.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, taking a portable around a roundabout.
Yeah.
You ever have to cut a building in half?
Yep.
Instead of doing a 30, you do 215s?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
How does that look?
Fine. You just establish the cut line and basically just cut it in half.
Any restructuring?
It depends on, you're going to have to, sister up some joists or whatever you do, but it depends on the type of building and how it's cut, right?
I saw a TV show one time, and they cut the face off the front of a building, and two people went in the house, and they pushed it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the face opened up, and it was like a dollhouse. Yeah. Right? I suspect you guys would be something similar. You cut the thing right down the middle of the chainsaw and brace it up, and away you go?
Yeah. Yeah, more or less. It's pretty simple.
Is that like a week job, 2-week job?
Depends on the job, and you can cut them up faster and put them back together.
No doubt.
So,
yeah. What is it like when it gets to the other end? Do they shift? Do they move?
Not a lot. It depends too. My addition on my house came from Curtis up to Nestleton.
Yep.
Full walk-in ceramic shower, never cracked a grout joint.
Really?
But we had one 2 years ago. When we got to the lot, they didn't have the driveway built. And it was supposed to be built, and we didn't go up and check it ahead of time because it was a long distance.
Right.
So we got there, and now we got to cross where we shouldn't be and going through the mud, and that type of stuff will crack them. Drywall's it wasn't terrible, but drywall cracks and that kind of stuff is.
Should you almost expect it? Like if you're going to move a house,
we
should you
we
expect
write
to
it
repaint?
in. We tell everybody it's can't be guaranteed.
Yeah.
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 But
It's what
when it happens, when you get it there and it's not cracked, it's all great and everybody celebrates, but
Yeah.
no sense, you can't guarantee the impossible, right?
Like I've heard of some people saying just leave your furniture in. We'll just move it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
100%.
Don't take your dresser out, leave your clothing.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, there was a mover down in Texas. He used to put a glass of water on the windowsill
Just
when
'cause.
he moved. Yeah, just 'cause. When
You know
we
what?
moved my house up from Curtis, there was a Tim Hortons, half full Tim Hortons on the counter in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was still there when we got there.
Well, it's the Canadian homage.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's moving. Let's talk about jacking up a house. So for people who say, I bought this old house, I want to jack the thing up, I want to do a basement apartment down below or make an investment property or a living space or whatever, right? What does that cost and what does that process look like?
Same thing. It's by the job, a lot of stuff standard bungalows and that. This year we're looking at 20 to 35,000 base price.
Yeah. It's almost the same cost to jack it up as it is to move it.
Yeah, the moving's up. Like that's base price, like on a lot or something like that. Even some of them are coming in. Just depends on where we got to go on that. I'm just trying to think of what we got quoted out there this year. I might have been a bit low on that, but I think we got one. It only came in at like 30. But it can be quite a bit more
on the same lot.
On the same lot,
like to slide it over.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about going up the road.
No, no. Because on top of that, you got all your permits and the rest of it. And
to jump back to that, if you're going to go up the road, like would we be double to go up the road?
It wouldn't take much to double it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Especially if you get into 2 stories and wires and that can get really expensive.
True. Traffic lights, bridges, all of that. You ever have to take down lights?
Yeah.
You say it so flippantly.
Yeah, well, it's pretty common.
Take them down, man.
Yeah.
Just take the lights down. Like it's
well, they're meant to flip up or they turn on the poles.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you have one of those guys? I used to do welding on the side, and a guy came to me one time and he's like, "I got a pickup truck," and he's got this long stick with like a golf ball on the end of it, and they used to drive around and check the height for bridges because they were moving heavy equipment and machinery and stuff, and he would mount it on a front receiver hitch. Do you have a guy that does that? He drives around.
It's part of your permit process once you get to a certain height.
Is it?
You have to, yeah.
That's so funny. Your shingles blow off or anything?
It happens.
Yeah.
It does happen, yeah, for sure.
How fast are you going with the house? As fast as possible.
yes, sometimes.
Hammer down 200.
Yeah. Like up in my own house, I tried it out just to see what truck would do, but I think we hit almost 100 on that one.
Telling us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, back to jacking up a house. So, jacking up a bungalow, 1,000 square foot brick bungalow. You're talking 20, 30 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. Would that
Brick could be even more this year. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Because price of concrete.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, brick's just a lot more work. They're expensive.
That too.
When we used to get to a lot of the bungalows not moving around, sometimes it was cheaper to pull the brick off and re-brick it.
Really?
Then, yeah.
Wow.
But that was when brick prices were a lot cheaper too.
And assuming it's not heritage brick.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the heritage homes that are brick, though, that is the structure.
Okay.
It's not brick veneer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So would the 20 to 30,000 typically include like the foundation rebuild to get you back?
No.
No, that'd be an addition.
Yeah.
10 grand?
Foundations? No, they're getting up there. It's like you say, it's all different too, depending on if you're doing block poured ICF. We haven't quoted any poured this year, but last year pours were, 25 to 50, depending on the size of the house.
For a fresh foundation?
Yeah.
Okay. And what if you're going to jack it up, add 3 courses of block and drop it back down?
Yeah. So the one we did on Liberty there, that I think we were 15 on the lift, and they probably spent the same on the blocks and the parge and the windows, and that time you're done, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd be 30K.
Yeah.
All in to jack it up and do the thing.
Yeah, and we're telling people this year on full foundations, you got to budget 100, 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The concrete, man.
Concrete's
a killer
everything, and we always recommend walkout. Spend the money on the walkout.
Sure.
Why not?
While you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like a couple extra bucket scoops.
Yeah.
You're there anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah. What kind of person is doing this? Who's doing these kinds of jobs?
Anybody really, we see all kinds of customers. Sometimes it's, family homes. Sometimes it's, they can't tear it down and rebuild because of new setback rules, right? It changed a lot. There's all kinds of different
That's
reasons.
a big one. People with
It
a
is.
short setback?
Yeah.
Like, I can't take it down. Can't do it.
No, because if you build, then it doesn't make sense anymore, right? So
yeah, all the window openings, like some of those things can't change, but if you've got it there, you got it there. That's a bonus. What about insurance?
It's expensive.
Can you share what your insurance policy might cost you on an annual basis?
Probably about 30,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
30 grand. Yeah. Wow. And how many staff do you have?
3.
3.
Yeah.
So you and 3 guys move houses.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What do people not know about moving houses that you think they should?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I grew up in the industry, so for me, it's
totally
second
normal.
nature. It's all normal. Yeah.
Like,
but,
we're gonna move the CN Tower tomorrow. Like,
yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's. I always tell people it's not rocket science. It's building and moving. It's not as complicated as it seems, but like I say, to me, it's second nature. So
sure.
That's a tough one to quantify, but.
Speaking of the CN Tower, do you think you could jack the CN Tower up?
I get that question all the time.
Yeah.
But if you had enough time and enough money,
really?
you could figure it out.
Huh?
Yeah.
Because that thing sways like crazy at the top. Right?
Yeah.
I've heard it sways up to 3 meters.
I believe it. Yeah.
Can you imagine being in the bubble on the top of the needle and the thing is swaying back and forth 10 feet?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You fall over.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've worked on, we did a lot of dismantling of buildings and that too, and old pole barns and that when you're pulling them apart. Once you start to get the boards and the tin and that off, they sway.
Because that's what's keeping it up, right?
That's part of it. But the movement is what allows it to be there too. Like they have to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any favorite projects?
James Cooper was probably a staple for us. That was pretty big at the time. Yeah, they're all unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The James Cooper one. For the folks who don't know a ton about this, A, where can they find that video, or where can they find out more about that? Yeah. And B, tell us more about
it. There's some good videos on the move on YouTube. Just search James Cooper Mansion, and the history in that you probably find online. Yeah, it was at the time we did that. That was the largest building moved in Canada that we knew of.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How did you guys get that job?
It had to be done.
This obviously isn't a very.
There was at
industry.
the time there wasn't a lot of movers that were set up for that. That size of job, and even we had to build some equipment, have some stuff built just to do it. So
Specialty.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What did that cost?
Oh, I don't know. At that time, I think it was around $1 million.
$1 million bucks.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, but you look at the value of the land that it unlocked for whoever the builder was, and you say, "Move the house, move the thing, get it done tomorrow." Right?
Well, it's part of their budget, I guess, right? So,
I guess.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Just
Yeah.
$1 million bucks. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Just move the house. How did your dad?
But
get
when you
into this?
figure when they're building that building, they're spending, that's
Hundreds
a
of
drop
millions
in,
for condo
couple
towers.
hundred, yeah. Back then it would have been on that.
Sure.
Be more now.
How did your dad get into this years ago?
His old same story. He saw a house being moved when he was 5 years old, and he told his grandpa he was going to do that one day.
Really?
And, yeah. I guess it always was just something he wanted to do.
And it stuck.
Yeah.
And then you were born into the family, and you said the same thing.
Work was just something you had to do. And that was part of growing up. And when I got older, getting into it, and the company was small and growing, and then getting into some of the more modern equipment and trying things out and new stuff. I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other favorite projects that come to mind?
Most of them were back then, I remember when they built there was a big sales office on Simcoe North when they started up by Winfield Farms. And I remember looking at that when they were building it, and we were moving a lot of sales offices and that back then. I hope they move that because I'd like to get a chance of moving something that big. But by the time they did move it, we had already moved bigger. And so it wasn't as big a deal, but it was still cool at the time to think that, I remember when this was something I didn't even know if we could do, so.
You ever have one where you come across and you're like, oof, I don't think we can do that?
No, it's not my mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, no, it's
I've
how.
started jobs where I wish I didn't, but
Really?
we just figure it out. Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah.
What happened?
Just when you get into, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns in this business. And if you think you know it all, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you get into it, it's just hard work, when things start to go wrong or,
Tell us about a situation where you started the job and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Sometimes, in cottages, old cottages that have been built in sections, and you can lift it, but you don't know what you're going to get into when you get in there. And then when you start tunneling, and there's floorboards missing, there's floors that aren't attached to the house, there's, that kind of stuff. It's like can of worms. And it seems like it's never going to end. But.
Yeah. What are some of the other downside risks to moving out? So we talked about a lot of the opportunities that unlock, but what do people not know on the downside? What can happen if you're not prepared? Some of the hidden costs and things.
Stuff like that, past repairs or that kind of stuff. You're kind of unless you're kind of stuck with the layout, or else you might as well start looking at building new if you're just going to start gutting everything and starting over. So if you can live with, it might not be exactly what you want, but to keep it in the cost frame and that, then you're stuck with what you got, right?
Sure.
So
people-
that's a bit of a downfall to it.
Do people ever move and then do an addition?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Keep the house and blow at the back or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
I guess if you're in a mess, let's be in a mess once.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun. Thank you for being on the show.
No
From this side of
problem.
the mic, I can tell your passion and your enthusiasm
Yeah.
for the industry. And I think in construction today, I've been doing this for 10, 12 years. And for construction today, there's a lot of people who don't have the
Yeah.
passion that you have. And being second gen and a ton of experience and the lineage and the projects behind you, I think that's extremely impressive. So, for me to you, thank you so much
No
for
problem.
being on the
Appreciate it.
episode today.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you?
Sampsoncontracting.org.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's actually, we haven't updated that in a long time. That's on my list of things to do. But,
And are you on social media as well?
No.
No?
No.
Just give them a call.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I had the same phone number for 22 years now, so
And it's on your website?
it's on my website.
Terrific.
Yeah.
There you have it. Thanks for tuning in to the Highest and Best Use Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to sign up to the book. This one here at thehighestandbestuse.com. You can get it on Audible, Chapters, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the different places. So however you like to consume content, it is there for you. Like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.